In this world, people receive gifts, divine abilities granted by the gods from another dimension. These powers are only given once per person, and they vary widely in strength. They're ranked into 4 tiers, ranging from standard common gifts to special bloodline abilities. At the top are legendary gifts, unique powers that only exist once in the entire world. On the flip side, those born without a useful gift are labeled incompetent and treated as literal garbage. Because of this system, nations constantly invade each other to hoard the best abilities for themselves. Orpheus, a high-ranking noble, is absolutely losing it right now. A priestess just confirmed that his son, Ars, was born with the hearing gift, one of the most useless abilities out there. Orpheus is disgusted. He even married a talented woman specifically to ensure he'd have a powerful heir. He decides that an incompetent son is a stain on the family name and simply shouldn't exist. He orders his wife, Philia, to hand over the baby so he can dispose of him personally. The man makes it clear that he has zero use for a son with a defective gift. Philia collapses, coughing from the stress, but Orpheus coldly tells her to just stay quiet. Her desperate pleas finally force him to make a compromise. 5 years later, Ars is still alive, but he's been locked away in a sealed tower, hidden from the rest of the world. At this age, his gift hasn't done much besides making his hearing a bit sharper than normal. Philia visits him in secret, wondering if her son has been listening to the world outside again. Since he has nothing else to do, she starts teaching him how to read and write. The woman is incredibly frail and can only manage to visit him a few times every month. Even when they can't meet, Ars can hear her worrying about him through the walls. He notices that her heartbeat sounds different than usual. It's getting weaker. Philia just smiles and tells him she's happy he's concerned, but insists she's fine. She gives the boy a cross-shaped earring, hoping it will help him reconcile with Orpheus one day. She wishes for a future where they can all be together, though Ars isn't so sure about that. Suddenly, she starts coughing up blood, but hides it from her son before leaving. She stumbles down the long corridor, barely able to stay on her feet. The mother tells Orpheus she wanted to stay by her son's side longer, but he just calls the boy a defective failure. Orpheus tells her she's still precious to him and should stop wasting her time on the boy. Philia realizes that her husband only ever valued her for her magical talent. She begs him to treasure Ars once she's gone, crediting her son for making her life better. A few months later, Orpheus enters the tower to find Ars alone. He bluntly announces that Philia has died from her illness, leaving the boy devastated. He makes it clear that he has no intention of following his wife's last wishes or freeing his son. While the boy breaks down on the floor, Orpheus decides it's time to start magical development. He begins a brutal ritual, claiming the pain will force the boy's gift to evolve. Orpheus is obsessed with this forbidden technique, even though it usually just breaks the subjects. Years later, Ars is still a prisoner, and he knows there's no hope for a relationship with his father. But his gift actually did evolve. He can now reproduce any magic he learns about through hearing. His thirst for knowledge became a catalyst, and he spent every waking moment listening to the sounds of the world. He discovered he could use almost any spell just by knowing how it works, fueled by the massive mana pool he inherited from Philia. 10 years of isolation has changed him. The teen realizes that while the tower was meant to be a prison, the silence actually made it the perfect place to master his powers. Ars has no attachments to this place anymore. He's been here far too long and is actually looking forward to what's out there. The only real problem is his lack of experience. He knows he's strong enough to defeat his father, but the outside world is a total mystery. Orpheus walks in to bring dinner, but Ars is unimpressed by the meager portion. He asks if his father is done with those useless experiments. Orpheus snaps that after 16 years of zero progress, he's officially given up on Ars ever being useful. Ars takes the news pretty well, knowing that his brother, the one who inherited the family's bloodline gift, has already been named the next heir. Orpheus says he'll provide just enough food to keep him alive until the time comes to set him free, fulfilling Philia's final wish. Ars decides that today is as good a day as any to leave. He effortlessly shatters his shackles right in front of his father. The man is too stunned to speak as Ars casually says goodbye. He raises a hand, ready to blow a hole in the tower. Orpheus can only watch in disbelief. A massive blast rips through the stone wall. The power is overwhelming. Orpheus stares at the gaping hole in his high-security tower, unable to comprehend how an incompetent kid just did that. Ars walks out into the sunlight for the first time in 16 years, leaving his father's pride in the dust. The blast was way more powerful than Ars even intended. He realizes just how much magic he's actually stored up. Orpheus tries to convince himself the barrier must have just been weak, but Ars is already miles ahead in his head. He's determined to find the pinnacle of magic and learn every spell he doesn't know yet. Orpheus shouts for him to wait, but Ars has already vanished into the distance. It's like he was never there. Somewhere in the forest, a young woman is running for her life. She's exhausted and clearly being hunted. She trips and falls hard, her feet bound by magical vines. She's completely cornered. It's Yulia de Velou. A group of 5 hooded knights catches up to her, acting like they've just found a lost puppy. She tries to play it cool, saying she just wanted some fresh air after being locked up for so long. The knights aren't buying it. The lead knight tells her that her little stroll has cost them quite a few mages. They aren't in a polite mood anymore. He makes it clear that they have orders from the emperor to bring her back to the capital, one way or another. Yulia isn't backing down, even as they threaten to humiliate her if she keeps resisting. They don't care if she gets a few minor injuries. The knights are incredibly arrogant, treating a literal princess like she's already their prisoner. Yulia is visibly disgusted. The lead knight gets way too close, reminding her that their mission comes first, even if they have other desires. It's a pretty gross threat. Yulia keeps her dignity, asking them to at least remove the vines so she can walk herself. The knight agrees, thinking he's won. Suddenly, the lead knight, who just introduced himself as Rek, gets absolutely rocked by an invisible force. Blood sprays everywhere. The other knights are in total shock as their captain collapses. Yulia can't believe her eyes. Yulia is pinned down as the remaining knights panic. One of them actually suggests cutting off her limbs to make her easier to carry. They figure that as long as she's alive, their employer won't care about her condition. They're definitely the bad guys. Just as the knight raises his blade, it shatters into pieces. He's left staring at a broken hilt in total confusion. A calm voice from the shadows mocks them, calling their swords fragile. Everyone freezes. Ars casually steps out from behind a tree, apologizing for the interruption. He looks like he's just out for a casual walk. He mocks the magic knights for surrounding a single woman, questioning if this is really what they call chivalry. One of the knights charges, telling the brat to get lost. Ars doesn't even flinch. He raises a hand and fires an impact spell point blank. It's his first time actually using his magic on humans. The knight is sent flying through the trees. Yulia is speechless. The kid just used high-level magic without even a whisper of a chant. Ars is actually disappointed. He thought the geniuses of the Earth Empire would at least be able to deflect his weakest spell. The remaining knights try to regroup, guessing his attribute must be wind or storm. They think they still have the advantage because of their numbers. Ars decides to stop playing around and sets up a group-scale spell. He's already given them a fair warning. He casts Shadow Impact, and the ground around the knights begins to darken. The mana in the air feels completely different now. One of the knights tries to move, only to find himself completely frozen in place. The trap is already sprung. Ars explains that his spell is basically a mental flashbang. It shakes the ground and attacks the brain through the ears, inducing pure fear and confusion. Apparently, his enemies were too stunned to even think about defending themselves. He casually mentions that defensive magic would have blocked it easily. He's almost disappointed they didn't even try. It's hard to gauge your own power when your opponents are this incompetent. Ars looks down at the fallen knights, feeling a bit worried. If everyone out here is this weak, he'll never figure out his true limit. He turns his attention to the bound woman, deciding it's time to help her out. He recognizes her restraints as high-class magic tools. Most people would need a key or a specific counterspell, but Ars just remembers hearing how to break them with raw mana. With a simple gesture, the shackles shatter into dust. Yulia is floored. Breaking high-level seals without a single word or chant is supposed to be impossible. She wonders if he has multiple divine gifts. Ars snaps her out of her shock, suggesting they get moving before more trouble shows up. Yulia quickly gathers herself and thanks him for the save, still trying to process what she just saw. Yulia warns him that he's now an enemy of the Earth Empire's magic knights. She's worried about the trouble this will bring to his friends and family. Ars just tells her not to worry about it. He gives her the short version of his life story. Kid with a supposedly useless gift born into a fancy family. His mom protected him, but his dad just used him for illegal experiments once she was gone. When a talented heir was born, Ars was tossed aside like trash. He explains that's why he left. He has no home to go back to and no one left to protect. Yulia is horrified, especially since magic development experiments are strictly banned for being cruel and unforgivable. Despite her own situation, Yulia's heart goes out to him. She tells him he needs to take better care of himself. It's a bit ironic coming from someone who was just running for her life. Ars is genuinely touched. It's been a long time since anyone actually cared enough to get angry on his behalf. He decides it's only fair to properly introduce himself. He gives his name as Ars. Yulia hesitates for a second before revealing her full name, Yulia de Vilou. The name immediately rings a bell for Ars. Isn't that the royal family of the country the Empire destroyed? Ars asks if he should be calling her princess. Yulia gives a sad smile, saying she's not sure that title really means anything anymore, given her current fugitive status. She looks down at her wrists, clearly haunted by the time she spent in captivity. She tells him her escape was mostly down to pure luck. Ars gets the hint and drops the subject, agreeing they should leave this place behind. Yulia asks where he's heading next. Ars mentions his plan to go to the City of Magic. It's a massive independent territory ruled by the Magic Association, famous for not putting up with anyone's political nonsense. He says there's someone he wants to meet there. Yulia seems intrigued. The City of Magic is known as the center of the world, where the most gifted mages and the deepest magical secrets are gathered. Yulia takes a deep breath and asks if she can come along. She was planning to head that way anyway, and she clearly feels safer with someone who can casually shatter high-level magic seals. Ars is a bit surprised by the request. He reminds her that she's being hunted by an entire empire. Sticking with him won't be easy, and it definitely won't be safe. Yulia knows the risks, but she points out that she's already a target. If they go to an independent city like the City of Magic, they might actually have a chance to disappear. She asks if it's really okay for her to join him. Ars thinks about it for a second. Traveling with a princess who has a massive bounty on her head sounds like a lot of work, but he doesn't seem to mind. He agrees that going together makes sense. He's actually looking forward to it. He's heard that finding companions is part of the journey, and two people are better than one. Yulia is beyond relieved and offers to use her connections to guide them once they get closer. Ars and Yulia prepare to head out. It'll take about a day to reach the City of Magic on foot. Yulia is curious. After seeing him use so many different types of magic, she asks the big question. What exactly is his gift? Ars looks a little awkward. He wasn't sure how to explain it without getting a weird reaction, but he decides to just be honest. He reveals his gift is actually just hearing. Yulia is completely confused, since that doesn't explain how he's a magical powerhouse. Ars explains that he doesn't really understand the how himself. He just knows that aside from specific gift attributes, he can handle almost any magic. He thinks having good ears is pretty worthless in a world where magic power is everything. Yulia, however, thinks it's a gift to be envied. She sincerely tells him that his power saved her life, so he should definitely be proud of it. Ars decides he's shared enough about himself and flips the script, asking the princess about her own gift. She smiles and reveals her magic system is light. She asks if it suits her, clearly enjoying the conversation. Ars agrees that it's the perfect gift for a princess, which clearly makes her happy. He mentions that light is a legendary, one-of-a-kind power. He's intrigued and asks if she'll show it to him later. Yulia winks and asks if he'll save her again when she does. Ars realizes that carrying around a legendary gift is basically like wearing a Find Me sign for enemies. The sun is starting to set, so Ars suggests they rest before aiming for the border. Yulia agrees, and they settle in for the night. Ars starts prepping for a fire, but he's doing it in a pretty unconventional way. He's never really done this outside of a tower. Yulia insists on helping out, saying they should look after each other. Ars tries to brush it off, but she's determined to be useful. Yulia mentions she's good at making sweets and offers to handle the cooking. Ars is skeptical, wondering if she actually knows what she's doing. Ars is staring at a fork and knife like they're alien technology. He tells her he's only ever been given food he could eat with his hands. Yulia pulls out some firestones and explains how they work. She's surprised he doesn't even know the basics of starting a campfire. She realizes just how isolated he's been. She offers to teach him, suggesting they light the fire together. Yulia leans in close to help him with the stones. Ars is a little stiff, but he's slowly getting the hang of things. Yulia tells him he can ask her anything. She admits she struggled at first too, but a skilled maid taught her everything she knows about survival. Ars watches Yulia prepare dinner, thinking that despite being a princess, her skills in the kitchen look surprisingly legit. Yulia is still reeling from the fact that Ars just broke those high-level magic restraints. He brushes it off, saying they just felt brittle for some reason. Yulia serves up the meal with a proud smile, but Ars is hit with the sudden realization that looking professional and actually being a good cook are two very different things. She admits she's never actually cooked before. She just watched her maid do it a few times and figured, how hard could it be? The soup looks like a literal crime scene. Ars takes a bite, prepared for the worst, while Yulia waits for his soul to leave his body. Surprisingly, it's not bad. Ars tells her it actually tastes good, and Yulia is so relieved she practically glows. As they eat, Ars mentions he plans to take it easy once they get to the City of Magic. Yulia asks what he'll do once they arrive. Yulia mentions she has a sister who runs a guild there. Ars asks if her sister also has a legendary gift. Yulia explains that her little sister, Karen, has the flame gift, which is basically the super buffed version of regular fire magic. Karen is a powerhouse in her own right. Between the two of them, the royal family has some serious magical firepower. Ars notes that having two legendary gifts in one family is a massive target for the Empire. Yulia sighs, saying she hasn't even seen her sister in person for a long time. She's really looking forward to the reunion, and she's even more excited to introduce Ars to her sister. Ars agrees that meeting her sounds interesting, but for now, they need to focus on crossing the border. They pack up and keep moving under the cover of night. They're still in enemy territory, so there's no room for slack. Ars suddenly asks Yulia if she's actually strong. She's a bit caught off guard by the blunt question. He points out that she's carrying a sword she borrowed from a guard. He figures if she's free to use her magic now, she should be able to handle herself. Yulia admits she's actually quite skilled with a blade. She only got caught because they sealed her gift and took her weapon. If she had either, she wouldn't have been a prisoner. Ars gets a look in his eyes that tells her he's definitely going to hold her to that. He's curious to see her in action. Yulia hopes she won't disappoint him. The pressure of being watched by someone as powerful as Ars is a lot to handle. Ars notes that she doesn't seem tired yet, but he doesn't want to push her too hard. Yulia insists she's fine and has been training hard, even if she doesn't look the part. Ars suggests they rest soon anyway. Ars explains that they've made good progress and monsters are a pain at night. Just then, his ear twitches. His hearing is picking something up. He realizes something is tracking them. Yulia notices his change in mood and asks if something's wrong. A massive wolf-type monster lunges from the shadows. Yulia doesn't even blink. She draws her sword and bisects it mid-air in a single fluid motion. One down. Two massive hellhounds block the trail, growling as they gear up to pounce. Yulia warns Ars about the threat. These things are super territorial. They've accidentally walked right into a pack's hunting ground. One of the monsters lunges out of the brush. Yulia realizes they aren't going to let them just walk away. She draws her blade and takes the head off the first beast in one clean motion. Ars stays back and watches as she handles the front line. She notes there are still two more left. The remaining hounds spring from the shadows, flanking her from both sides at once. Blood sprays across the clearing as the monsters close in. Ars just watches the whole thing with a detached look. Yulia keeps up the fight, but Ars decides it's about time he actually did something. He drops to one knee and unleashes a chantless double-element spell he calls Vegblasen. The massive shockwave just deletes the monsters from existence, leaving behind nothing but smoke. Yulia is completely frozen. She can't believe he just used high-level multi-element magic without saying a word. She clenches her sword, her mind racing. Most mages can barely handle one element, and he's out here doing this. She admits his magic is incredible. It's pretty clear he never actually needed her protection. Ars just gives a small smile. He tells her you can't judge a person by how they look, and that he's actually impressed by her. Yulia looks down, feeling a bit humbled. Compared to him, she feels like she's still got a long way to go. She sheathes her blade with a blush, just happy she didn't let him down. They decide to set up camp for the night. Ars says the heat from the hellhound fur should help with the cold. He offers her the fur, saying he's used to the cold, so she should take it. Yulia hesitates, wondering why this guy is always worrying so much about her. She suggests they both cuddle up under the fur to stay warm. Ars doesn't see any reason to say no. As they sit under the moonlight, she asks if he's looking for someone special in the Magic City. He tells her he's trying to find Mimir, a person said to be the absolute strongest magician alive. He clenches his fist. He doesn't just want to find him. He wants to fight him and win. He wants the whole world to know he exists. Yulia immediately offers to help him with his goal. She says they're friends now, so he can drop the titles and just call her Yulia. Ars agrees and says he should just be called Ars too. Yulia is determined to pay him back for saving her. He notices her shivering and asks if she's cold, which just makes her apologize. He tells her to get some rest. Yulia realizes she spent so long doubting people that she almost missed how kind he is. She feels terrible for ever doubting him after everything he's done. She vows to always be on his side from now on. Ars tells her he feels the same way. He tells her she can count on him anytime, which makes her genuinely happy. Within minutes, she's out cold on his shoulder. Ars watches the fire, thinking about his real reason for finding Mimir. He wants to show that the weak can overcome the strong and become a beacon of hope for everyone else. Meanwhile, at the Megenberg estate, an unexpected guest arrives at the remote mansion. Volk von Arkenfeld, one of the Holy Church's great saints, shows up to have a talk with Ars's father. Orpheus listens as Volk talks about the Empire destroying the kingdom of Vilo to get a certain gift. To the Church, white-type gifts are sacred. They can't just look the other way while the Empire hunts the princess. Orpheus tries to play it off, claiming he's just a minor noble with no power in this mess. Volg gets to the point. He wants the princess handed over to the church if she's found. Then he brings up the one topic Orpheus was avoiding: his son Ars and his rare hearing gift. He asks if Orpheus ever actually confirmed what that gift was capable of. The saint says they'll keep things quiet for now, but they know someone matching Ars's description is helping the princess escape. Volg warns him that if the truth comes out, playing dumb won't save them. The Megenberg family's darkest secrets would be laid bare for everyone to see. Helping Ars would be straight-up treason, and Orpheus knows his family's survival is on the line. He's in deep trouble regardless of what he chooses. Orpheus realizes there's no way a low-ranking knight like him could take on a saint of the Holy Church. He's completely outmatched. Volg offers him a deal. Keep cooperating with the church, and he'll personally smooth things over with the emperor. It's an offer Orpheus can't really refuse. Volg promises the family will stay protected as long as they play along. He waits for Orpheus's final answer with a calm, expectant look. Orpheus grits his teeth, hating that he's being backed into a corner. He agrees to expand the search, knowing he's stuck working with the church for now. Volg shifts the conversation to Ars's hearing gift. Orpheus dismisses it as a useless, worthless ability, but he's clearly on edge. Volg asks if he's heard about the person currently causing chaos across different nations. Someone who's been effortlessly stealing the world's most classified magical intel. Every nation is on high alert, desperately trying to catch the culprit. Volg admits they don't have much to go on yet, as the guy is like a ghost. The Holy Church has a massive interest in this person too. Orpheus sweats, realizing they're chasing a legend that might not even be real. Volg knows they can't just ignore a figure sought by every world leader. The name they've given this mysterious genius is Mimir. Yulia stirs as she wakes from her nap. Ars notices and mentions she must have been completely drained. She apologizes for crashing, but he shrugs it off. She quickly spots their goal just ahead on the path. They come face to face with the Tower of Babel. Yulia asks if it's the first time he's seen the legendary structure. She describes it as the heart of the magic city, a tower reaching for the heavens where the world's best mages congregate. Ars is eager to see what's inside. They start moving toward the entrance. He wonders how they're going to get past the gates. Yulia expects a guard to be around, but footsteps approach from the front. A girl with red pigtails sprints out and tackles Yulia in a hug, overjoyed that her sister is alive. Yulia is shocked to find her sister, Karen de Villot, waiting right there at the entrance. Karen immediately focuses on the new face, noting that Ars definitely doesn't look like a soldier from their kingdom. Yulia de Villot clears things up, introducing Ars as the person who saved her life during her escape from the Empire. Karen apologizes and introduces herself as the former second princess of Villot, now a guildmaster in the association. Ars is curious. He asks how someone born into royalty ended up working for the Magic Association. Karen explains the tension between their home and the Earth Empire and how her father felt their power was slipping. She joined the association to gain the knowledge needed to protect her family. Yulia admits their father wasn't thrilled about the choice. Karen de Villot admits she had to give up her right to the throne to follow this path. Ars respects the resolve she had for the choice. She looks down, frustrated that despite everything, she wasn't able to save their country in the end. Yulia insists she's still a massive help to her now. Karen snaps back into leader mode and says it's time for the baptism. Ars has no idea what that means. Karen explains it's just a standard welcoming ritual for visitors. She begins the formal induction, reciting verses about laying bare one's knowledge to gain true wisdom. Karen finishes with a flourish, officially welcoming them to the city that touches the gods. They enter the city, and the massive scale of the buildings is unlike anything they've seen. Ars remarks on how much livelier it is than his old home. Yulia asks where they're headed next. Karen leads the way to her guild's headquarters, giving them a confident wink as they approach. She mentions that since running a guild is expensive, She also operates a tavern on the side to stay afloat. Yulia is skeptical, wondering how her sister can run a bar when she doesn't drink. Karen de Villu insists she's got the management part down. Yulia's imagination runs wild, picturing her sister serving drinks in a bunny girl outfit. Karen quickly corrects the misunderstanding, sweating as she explains it's just a normal food and drink spot. They reach the tavern, called Sisters of the Lamplight, and Karen gestures for them to head inside. Inside, a creep is harassing one of the waitresses, trying to get her to hang out with him. A tall woman named Elsa intervenes, sliding a knife onto the counter to show she's not kidding about the rules. Elsa threatens to not miss next time if he doesn't leave, and the guy immediately bolts out of the tavern. Karen de Villiers thanks Elsa for the help. The skilled attendant bows and welcomes her mistress back. Seeing Yulia safe brings a look of pure relief to Elsa's face. Yulia notes that her former attendant hasn't changed a bit. Elsa asks who the guest is. Ars introduces himself, and she is surprised he addresses the princess so casually. Yulia explains that Ars saved her. He realizes that Elsa and the princess must have a long history together. Karen de Villiers adds that while she's the boss, the guild would probably fall apart without Elsa's constant support. She lists off Elsa's talents, from cooking and cleaning to managing the entire guild and tavern operations. Ars stares at Karen with a deadpan expression, wondering what her job actually is if Elsa does everything. Karen explains that the staff, known as Schuler, are all guild members. Elsa formally thanks Ars for rescuing Lady Yulia. He tells her it was no problem at all. As a small thank you, Elsa offers to cook them a meal. Ars is more than ready for some actual food. He holds out his torn poncho, asking if she can fix his gear as well. Elsa is happy to help. Elsa bows out to go get things ready, leaving the two sisters behind. Karen de Villiers starts plotting, thinking this is the perfect opportunity to make up for lost time. Karen gets all fired up and offers to help Elsa in the kitchen. Elsa shuts her down with a terrifyingly stern look, telling her to stay out of the kitchen and focus on the guests instead. Yulia de Villiers is impressed by how authoritative her maid has become. Karen changes the subject and asks Ars what his specific magic gift is. Ars takes a sip of his drink and casually explains that his gift is just hearing, which basically just means he has sharp ears. Karen finds it hard to believe it's just a normal gift after seeing how Yulia reacted earlier. Yulia suddenly remembers something important. Karen de Villiers brags about her own progress, having recently reached the 4th rank in the association, known as Ophanim. She explains that there are 12 ranks in total, with the top tier being called Demon Lords. Karen is aiming for a higher rank to gain more political influence. Ars thinks it'd be a blast to actually challenge one of those demon lords now that he has the chance. Karen is surprised by how much more excited he is for a fight than anything else. Elsa finally brings out the food, and Ars is mesmerized. This is the first time he's ever sat down for a proper, well-cooked meal. He takes a bite and immediately lights up, thanking Elsa for the delicious cooking. Ars notices some food on Yulia's face and reaches over to wipe it off for her. Karen can't help but grin, teasing him for being such a natural flirt. Karen de Villiers tries to joke around with Elsa, asking if she isn't being a little too strict with everyone. Elsa doesn't crack a smile as she gives a firm no. Ars reflects on how much better food tastes when you're sharing it with others. Yulia, blushing slightly, asks if he'd like to explore the city with her tomorrow. Karen interrupts the mood to announce that her guild is heading out to the Lost Lands tomorrow and invites them to tag along. Ars is immediately on board, since he's heard stories about that dangerous region through his hearing gift for years. The Lost Lands were once the domain of the Demon Emperor, but became a chaotic, uninhabitable wasteland after a massive war against the gods. Ars wonders if they're going to walk all that way. But Karen de Villiers explains they'll be taking a shortcut through the transfer gate at Babel Tower. She warns them that they might cross paths with troops from the Earth Empire since they frequent the area too. Elsa confirms she'll be joining the expedition as well. With the plans set, Karen suggests they all turn in for the night. Karen asks Yulia if she's really okay with staying in a room separate from ours. Yulia gets flustered and shouts that, of course she is. Yulia de Veloute stammers out that she doesn't actually dislike him, while Elsa leads Ars to a guest room that's much nicer than anything he's used to. Once they're settled, Elsa mentions one more thing before she leaves. She points out that both Ars and Yulia are pretty filthy from their travels and need to wash up. Yulia is mortified that Elsa said that right in front of him. Yulia ends up pulling on Karen's cheeks for the embarrassment, while Karen de Veloute just takes it, planning to escort Ars to the baths later. Karen takes Yulia de Villiers away first, promising to come back for Ars soon. Left alone, his thoughts drift toward tracking down information on the thief Mimir. He decides not to rush things and just enjoy the current adventure. A little while later, Karen shows up at his door to lead him to the baths. Meanwhile, Yulia and Elsa are already relaxing in the large, steaming tub, having been invited by Karen de Veloute to soak together. The two of them talk about how unusual it is for everything to be so peaceful after their recent escape. Karen peeks in and tells Yulia de Veloute to take her time getting clean, since she has some preparations to handle for the morning. Yulia sinks into the water, letting the heat wash away the stress of the day. Back at Ars's room, Karen gives the door a knock to see if he's ready. He lets her in, already waiting for the escort. Karen de Veloute arrives wearing her sleepwear, looking a lot more relaxed than before. She tells Ars she's here to take him to the bath as promised. Ars admits that back when he was locked up, he'd only ever wiped himself down with wet towels, so he's never actually used a real bath before. They head down the hallway together. Karen notices him staring and asks what's on his mind. Suddenly, Ars leans in and starts sniffing her, catching her completely off guard. He tells her she smells incredibly nice. Karen de Veloute is flustered by the sudden lack of personal space, but hands him some cleanser to use. She points him down the corridor, telling him the bath he needs to use is just ahead. Ars points to a different door, asking about that one. Karen nervously explains that one isn't ready for use today, and insists he uses the other door. He thanks her for all the help and casually offers to return the favor by washing her back next time. Ars explains that he heard it's a common thing for close friends to do, and since they're friends now, it shouldn't be an issue. Karen de Veloute is left completely stunned and blushing. She manages to say she'll take him up on it later, wondering if her little prank just backfired on her. Ars steps into what he thinks is his private bath, only to see a figure dash out in a panic, shouting about leaving immediately. He watches them go, wondering if he accidentally cut someone's turn short. He makes a mental note to thank Karen de Veloute later for being so hospitable to a stranger like him. As the steam clears, he realizes he's not alone. Yulia de Veloute is right there in the water, her face turning a bright shade of red as she realizes who just walked in. Ars casually mentions that Karen sent him here, completely unfazed by the situation. Yulia is too stunned to speak, while a set of stern eyes watches from the corner. He figures Karen de Veloute was just being helpful, giving him a chance to ask Yulia any questions he might have. Meanwhile, Yulia de Veloute is experiencing a full-blown internal crisis. Elsa is also in the tub, and she doesn't look nearly as flustered as Yulia. She fixates on Ars and asks if he has anything he wants to say to the two of them. Ars finally notices Elsa is there too. He looks them over and notes that they both look surprisingly well trained for high-ranking nobles. In his usual blunt fashion, he tells them they both have fine bodies and should be proud of how fit they are. Elsa's stoic mask slips just a bit as she stares him down, clearly frustrated by his complete lack of a filter. Ars gestures to the bath supplies, admitting that he has no idea how to use any of these fancy cleansers. He asks Elsa if she could show him the ropes. Elsa's eyes go wide as she realizes what he's implying. She asks him with a shaky voice if he's actually asking her to wash him. Yulia de Veloute is trembling in the background, likely wishing the floor would swallow her whole. Ars just stands there, genuinely confused by their intense reactions. Elsa finally snaps, yelling at him that this is absolutely not that kind of establishment. She sighs, realizing that Ars's long confinement has left him with some massive gaps in common social knowledge. She asks him point blank if he had any contact with women while he was locked away. Ars thinks for a moment and realizes he hadn't met anyone other than his late mother. That explains a lot. Elsa decides they'll have to give him a crash course in social etiquette later, but for now, they need to get Yulia out of the water before she catches a cold. The ladies quickly wrap up and prepare to leave. Yulia manages a small smile, while Elsa remains as serious as ever. Ars bids them goodnight. He mentions that since they're friends now, they should probably just go in together next time to save time. Elsa freezes in her tracks, asking him to repeat what he just said. There's a sudden thud and a yelp as the shock of his proposal causes some minor chaos at the door. Elsa turns back, her expression unreadable as she calls out to him. She asks him with a dead serious face if he's prepared to take responsibility for what he's seen. Without a second thought, Ars says that of course he will. Elsa turns away quickly, her ears turning red. She says she's received his consent and tells Yulia de Villiers it's time to go. Yulia is hiding her face, mortified that he saw everything, while Elsa tries to reassure her by pointing out that he's already agreed to take responsibility. Ars watches them leave, thinking that while Elsa always seemed cold and distant, she actually has a pretty funny side to her. The next morning, the sun is up and the birds are chirping. It's officially time for their expedition to begin. Karen de Villiers is waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs, greeting him with a cheerful good morning. She leans in with a mischievous grin, asking if the bath turned out to be a nice memory for him. Yulia de Villiers catches up and starts whispering something to Karen, her face still a bit pink from the night before. Yulia tells them both that it makes her happy to see Ars and Karen getting along so well. Karen is completely blindsided by her sister's comment. Yulia de Villiers isn't actually that happy, though. She scolds Karen for tricking Ars into the wrong bath, even though Karen de Villiers insists she already apologized for the prank. Elsa cuts through the drama, informing everyone that the rest of the group has already left and they are falling behind schedule. Elsa clenches her fist, satisfied with the interruption. They decide to table the bath discussion for later and start heading toward their destination. They arrive at the massive Tower of Babel, and Ars is genuinely impressed by its scale. Karen asks if he's heard the rumors about someone recently stealing magic knowledge from the upper levels. Karen de Villiers explains that the Magic Kings weren't the only ones targeted. Several countries were affected, almost sparking a war between the association and the Holy Church. Ars realizes that whoever did it must be incredibly skilled to pull one over on the Magic Kings. The legendary thief is known simply as Mimir. Ars repeats the name to himself, a focused look in his eyes. He thinks back to his time in chains, remembering how he'd heard whispers of Mimir's antics even through the walls of his cell using his hearing gift. Ars asks if Mimir is currently somewhere in the Magic City. Karen de Villiers admits she's heard rumors, but doesn't think anyone has actually seen the elusive thief. He knows tracking them down won't be easy. They reach the transfer gate, and Elsa explains that it functions by drawing mana directly from the people using it. Karen gets a devious look on her face and gives Ars a hard shove, pushing him toward the gate while joking that his mana will serve as the travel fee. Karen de Villiers has a good laugh as he stumbles through, while Yulia tells her she really needs to start being more sincere with her apologies. Karen de Villiers watches the gate close behind the first group and announces that they should get moving as well. Elsa stares at her with a look of pure disappointment, noting that despite her constant mistakes, Karen never seems to learn or feel any remorse for her antics. Elsa continues to scold her, suggesting that Karen's face is the only thing that doesn't need more training. She narrows her eyes, reminding Karen that the whole bath disaster was entirely her fault. Karen starts to sweat, laughing nervously as she tries to claim she actually feels bad. Elsa isn't buying it, wondering if Karen is just being shy about the mess she made. Elsa's face turns bright red as she gets lost in a romantic daydream. She had always planned for only one man to ever see her. And since Ars agreed to take responsibility, she's convinced they are meant to be together. Karen is completely weirded out by the sudden change in atmosphere. She tries to gently point out that when Ars gave his word, he probably wasn't thinking about a lifelong commitment. Elsa isn't listening, insisting that Ars was being completely sincere. She warns that once a man has given his word like that, there's no going back on it. Her resolve becomes incredibly intense, making a vow of extreme apology to Ars that leaves Karen sweating. Karen tells her she's taking things way too far and needs to calm down. Karen tries to downplay the situation, asking if it wasn't just a brief glimpse. Elsa's eye twitches at the suggestion, her reaction becoming even more volatile. With a terrifying aura, Elsa yells that he saw everything. Karen is left screaming in terror at her companion's overwhelming and scary intensity. Meanwhile, the group arrives at their destination. Karen comes crashing through the transfer gate and faceplants onto the stone floor, much to Yulia de Villet's confusion. Karen rubs her aching head, realizing that her earlier prank just came back to bite her. Elsa steps out of the portal a moment later, looking perfectly composed as she confirms everyone arrived safely. Karen is practically in tears from the embarrassment and the fall. Elsa remarks with a cold, knowing smile that it's a relief to see she's still mostly in one piece. Desperate for comfort, Karen latches onto her sister in a big hug. Yulia de Villiers can only sigh, correctly guessing that her sister must have done something to really upset Elsa. They quickly pivot back to the mission as Elsa asks if anyone needs supplies. Ars says he wants a dagger and some new clothes, which surprises Karen since his magic is already top tier. Ars explains that magic isn't an infinite resource, and he wants more options in a fight. Yulia de Villiers agrees that's a smart move, and they decide to head toward a local shop called the Dock Nest. Karen asks about the shop, and Elsa explains it's a nearby branch of a guild they have a good relationship with. They arrive at a well-stocked store filled with everything from battle gear to stuffed bears. Elsa notes that while the idea originally came from Karen, it was actually a surprisingly sensible choice. The group steps inside, finding a high-end interior that's far more impressive than your average equipment shop. Yulia de Villiers is immediately captivated by the beautiful displays, her eyes sparkling as she asks Ars if he likes the look of the place. Ars isn't just looking for weapons. He stops at a specific display, thinking one of the accessories would look particularly good on Yulia. He picks out a delicate flower hair ornament and shows it to her. He tells her with complete honesty that he thinks it would look great with her silver hair. Without waiting for her to respond, he gently places the flower in her hair. He steps back to admire his choice, telling her again that it really suits her. Yulia de Villiers is left stunned and blushing, impressed by how good he is at giving compliments. Ars just shrugs it off, saying he only stated what naturally came to mind. Ars notices Elsa is eyeing something while they're out shopping. It's a cute teddy bear, and Elsa looks surprisingly soft as she stares at it. When Ars asks if she wants to buy it, she quickly plays it cool, saying she just likes looking. She tries to act professional, claiming a plushie like that wouldn't fit in her dull room anyway. Ars doesn't see the problem and suggests it's exactly what she needs to brighten the place up. He hands it to her, pointing out that even if she doesn't want it, she could always give it to some kids. That one word, kids, sends Elsa's brain into an absolute tailspin of a realization. She immediately starts imagining a whole future together, complete with a baby that looks just like them. Suddenly, she's all in, hugging the bear and deciding they should buy it for the children, while Ars just stands there confused. She brushes off his confusion with a smile, telling him he'll be making plenty of money soon anyway. She tells him to count on her for support, while Karen watches from the background, looking a bit concerned about her friend's sanity. Elsa is already planning out a 4-child household, squeezing the life out of that poor bear as she prepares herself for motherhood. Karen can only watch in silence, realizing that once Elsa gets like this, there's no turning back. She quickly tries to change the subject, pointing Ars toward the daggers to get him away from Elsa's crazy energy. Karen practically shoves him toward the weapon rack, telling him to just pick something and hurry up. Ars checks the price tags and realizes that with his current budget, he's stuck in the bronze tier. Yulia comes over to check on him, asking if he's found anything he likes. He admits he's a total amateur at judging weapons, so Yulia steps in to give her expert opinion. She picks out a pair of bronze daggers, explaining that for their price, they have great magic conductivity and durability. She knows her stuff since she's been handling weapons since she was a kid, and she's confident these will suit him. She notes that they'll be even stronger if he reinforces them with magic, so Ars decides to take the pair. Next on the list is a new outfit, but Ars is ready to tap out, since buying the daggers wiped out his wallet. Karen and Elsa keep a close eye on them, with Karen noting how much more considerate Yulia is compared to her. Yulia gets a bit flustered and offers to buy the clothes for him as a thank you for all his help. Ars wonders if that's okay, but the girls aren't taking no for an answer and drag him along. He confesses that he's never actually chosen his own clothes before, which only makes Yulia more determined. She's practically beaming, promising to help him pick out the perfect look. Karen mentions that some people pick clothes to match their magic type, wondering if Ars should go for something dark. Ars thinks about his own magic and concludes that black doesn't really describe it, but it's a start. They find a sharp-looking uniform that catches everyone's eye, and Yulia is sure it's the one. Since everyone is giving it the thumbs up, Ars agrees to go with it. Yulia is way too excited and insists that he try it on right then and there. After thanking them, Ars heads off to change while Karen hands him a belt to hold his new daggers. When he steps out in the new gear, the group is stunned by how much the black and gold aesthetic suits him. Yulia notices Elsa is staring again and asks if something is wrong. Elsa is still lost in her delusions, now worried about their imaginary child's future school expenses. They finish up their shopping and head out to meet the rest of the expedition force, where Ars spots a lot of familiar faces. Karen explains that most of them are mages who are still loyal to the Vilut family and willing to face the danger. She reflects on her ultimate goal, to build a new home where her sister can finally be safe and worshipped. She claps her hands to get everyone's attention, leaving Ars thinking her ambitions are a little intense. She takes on a serious tone, warning everyone that the lost lands they're headed to are completely lawless. With a final command to stay safe, the group begins their march toward the unknown. Ars and Yulia share a quiet moment as they head out, both admitting they're actually starting to look forward to the journey ahead. The ground suddenly shakes with a heavy rumble as a massive eye snaps open, making Karen realize she might have left out one tiny, giant-sized detail. As a massive giant looms behind her, Karen casually warns them that the monsters in these lands are on a completely different level of power. Karen warns the group that rushing in recklessly is a bad idea. She suggests using long-range magic to keep the Cyclops at a safe distance. Elsa lets out a long sigh, clearly tired of the chatter. Karen tells everyone to focus and save the talk for later. Karen ignores the warning, claiming she knows exactly what she's doing. She readies her spear, eager to jump into the fray. She charges forward with a shout, slamming her weapon into the Cyclops' face with everything she's got. The massive beast doesn't stand a chance and hits the ground with a deafening thud. Elsa notes that there isn't much left for them to do if the front line is this aggressive. As more Cyclops appear, she suggests letting Ars and Yulia handle them. Ars suggests turning the hunt into a game, to see who can kill their target faster. Yulia is immediately on board. She adds a wager. The loser has to buy the winner whatever they want. Ars agrees, thinking it sounds like a fair deal. Yulia draws her sword and begins chanting, "Éclair!" her blade glowing with a brilliant light. She shoots a confident look at Ars, telling him she won't be losing this little match. In a split second, Yulia blurs past her target, decapitating the Cyclops before it can even swing its club. She gives Ars a smug smile, declaring herself the winner. Ars admits defeat, conceding that she was faster. Yulia reminds him that he owes her a gift now, and she expects him to keep his promise on their next shopping trip. Karen starts worrying about the price tag, wondering if their quest rewards will even cover what a princess might ask for. Ars decides to use the moment to test a theory. He copies Yulia's chant and tries to activate Eclair himself. The girls stand in stunned silence as Ars suddenly rockets off into the distance, leaving them in the dust. Karen starts yelling at him, asking what he thinks he's trying to pull. She tells him that copying legendary magic is supposed to be impossible. She insists that there are some things you just can't imitate, no matter how much you want to. Karen explains that his gift has nothing to do with light-type magic. Ars looks at his hand, realizing that a normal imitation attempt failed. He asks Yulia if he can try one more thing. He says he just wants to test something out real quick, just in case. Ars places a hand on Yulia's head and activates his Fälschung ability. Yulia blushes, caught off guard by the sudden contact. This time, the magic takes hold. Ars activates Eclair, and the world around him instantly slows to a crawl. He looks around in awe as time seemingly stops, even watching a bird frozen in mid-air. He realizes this legendary magic is the real deal. Looking at his frozen companions, he gains a new appreciation for the world Yulia fights in, a place where time has no meaning. Ars steps forward in the frozen world and delivers a lethal blow to the remaining Cyclops. As the spell ends, he feels the massive strain on his body. This level of magic consumes an unbelievable amount of mana. He notes that the effect has a very short time limit. Only now does the blood finally erupt from the wound he just made. The Cyclops falls, leaving the girls completely confused. Ars thinks Yulia is even more impressive than he realized, given she uses this power regularly. Karen suddenly unleashes her own devastating spell, Fafnir's Dragon Roar, sending a massive beam of fire across the clearing. The roar of the flames is so loud Ars has to brace himself. He looks back at Karen, wondering why she's going so hard. He asks Karen what she's doing using that much power. She looks back with a flustered expression, caught up in the heat of battle. She apologizes, explaining that her flame magic sometimes boosts her physical strength too much when she gets excited. Ars quickly analyzes her technique, figuring out how she integrated the magic into her spear strike. Karen tries to keep her secrets, but Yulia is still stuck on the fact that Ars just used her own signature magic like it was nothing. Ars finally reveals the truth. His gift lets him use Fälschung to replicate the magic of others. The girls find the ability almost too convenient. He explains that there are specific conditions, and he needs to hear the full incantation first. He apologizes for the secret, but Yulia is just happy he took the challenge seriously. Yulia laughs it off, saying she's not mad. In fact, she's even more excited for their shopping trip now. Ars asks her to have mercy on his wallet, while Yulia just blushes and smiles, clearly looking forward to it. A scout warns the group about a manticore ahead. Yulia doesn't hesitate and immediately goes on the offensive. She lunges at the beast with incredible speed, determined to finish it before anyone else can jump in. Yulia slices the manticore clean in half. Karen facepalms, reminding her that they were supposed to keep the head intact for materials. Yulia claims it was just a reflex, while Karen realizes her sister just moves instinctively in battle. Ars asks if they're done, but Karen notes the male version of the beast is still out there. Ars examines the aftermath of the battle. Karen explains that the creatures they fought were all females, as the males only show up to defend the pack. She adds that the males usually stay hidden if they sense humans nearby. When Ars asks if they're worth the effort, Karen confirms they fetch a very high price. Ars suggests going out to find one, but Karen warns him that while they might be timid, the males are significantly bigger and stronger than the females. With the sun beginning to set, Karen decides it's too risky to keep hunting in the dark. She orders the group to set up camp and rest for the day to avoid any unwanted monster encounters. Ars watches as the camp's defenses are built using earth magic. He's impressed by the spell, noting how it allows them to sense if the walls are being attacked. Yulia finds Ars to tell him that dinner is ready. She mentions that Elsa used local ingredients for the meal, calling it a good challenge for her culinary skills. Elsa greets everyone at the dining table, apologizing for the wait as she starts serving the bowls. She presents a hearty rice bowl that catches Yulia's eye immediately. Yulia takes a bite and asks what kind of meat she used. Elsa calmly drops the bombshell that they're eating manticore meat. A male mercenary nearby starts gagging, and even Karen looks horrified as she realizes she's already eaten a huge portion of it. Karen is furious that she was tricked into eating monster meat, but Elsa dismisses the concern, noting that Karen had already tested and approved the quality earlier. Elsa explains that a friendly beastman taught her the recipe, which makes any meat taste gourmet. Yulia finds it delicious, and Ars wonders if she's just that brave or just really trusts Elsa. As dinner wraps up, Ars notices the girls heading off for their bath. A male mercenary with a stubble beard and spiky black hair approaches him. The male mercenary calls out to Ars, telling him there's something he needs to ask. Ars looks over, curious about what's on his mind. In the hot spring, Karen feels a bit guilty that they're the only ones getting a bath. She wonders how the rest of the guys are spending their time. Ars casually drops some information that has the mercenary sweating and wide-eyed in total shock. The mercenary shouts in disbelief as the news spreads. He can't believe the rumors were actually true. He confronts Ars, asking if he really got a look at Yulia and Elsa without their clothes on. Ars gives a simple, blunt answer that only makes the guy more agitated. The mercenary calls Ars incredible, noting that anyone else would probably be dead for pulling that off. Karen and Yulia have a bad feeling that the guys are talking about something stupid. Ars tells them they're being way too dramatic about it. To him, sharing a bath isn't that big of a deal. The mercenary insists it's a massive deal and asks Ars for the details on how it was. Ars just tilts his head, not understanding what he's asking for. Getting frustrated, the mercenary tells him to stop playing dumb. He's about to ask another prying question when he suddenly stops. The mercenary is suddenly floored, seemingly by the sheer audacity of Ars's social denseness. Elsa finishes her bath and finds Ars waiting. He tells her he came to check on her because Karen was saying some weird things. Ars notices Elsa's hair is soaking wet and warns her she'll catch a cold. He reaches out with a towel, causing Elsa to blink in surprise. Ars starts gently drying her hair, a simple act that leaves Elsa completely flustered and blushing. She manages to stammer out a thank you. Elsa quickly pulls away, telling him that's enough and that she'll finish up back at the bath. She can barely maintain her composure. Ars mentions it's time for his watch duty, but Elsa tells him to watch his words, begging him not to make it sound like they always bathe together. She turns away, hiding her blushing face. She tells herself it's not that she dislikes his attention, but it's hard to keep up her professional image. Elsa worries that getting too carried away will set a bad example for the other knights. She tells Ars to please wait until they're back from the expedition. The mercenaries are still following Ars around, calling him master and begging him to share his secrets. Ars just wants them to leave him alone. Ars heads out for his night watch, leaving the rowdy crowd behind. As he stands alone in the dark, his senses pick up something approaching. He looks out into the clearing, pinpointing the source of the noise. Something is definitely lurking nearby. Ars draws his sword, his calm expression never wavering. He figures the creature must be upset about losing its pack and has come for revenge. A massive male manticore steps into the light. Ars was told they were timid, but this one is standing its ground and looks ready to kill. He decides this is the perfect chance to test his own limits and the defensive ability Karen was so worried about. The manticore lunges forward, its massive claw descending with incredible force. Ars stands his ground, blocking the strike with his blade. The impact creates a massive shockwave, but he doesn't budge. He keeps his guard up as the beast continues its assault, testing his magic-infused clothing against the creature's claws. The manticore's strike lands with a massive explosion of dust and debris. Ars realizes the stories about its mithril-like defense were true. He looks at his hand, feeling a slight sting from the impact. He compares it to one of Karen's slaps, noting that it still hurts a little bit. The manticore continues its roar, but Ars isn't fazed. He decides that he's seen enough to finish his little experiment. He was expecting something powerful enough to actually make Karen cautious, but he finds himself disappointed that the beast isn't stronger. Ars decides there's no point dragging this out and prepares to end the fight. He delivers a powerful kick, slamming into the manticore with immense force. Ars casts Death Whisper, a specialized magic that targets the creature's vital functions. The beast collapses instantly. Ars stares at the massive body, wondering how he's supposed to carry it back. Yulia rushes over from the camp, frantically asking if Ars is unharmed. Karen joins them shortly after, her jaw dropping at the sight of the slain male manticore. Karen is genuinely stunned that Ars took down such a high-level threat all by himself. Yulia's face pales as she spots a small bruise on Ars's arm, reacting as if it's a life-threatening injury. Yulia screams for a healer immediately. Karen tries to tell her a little spit would fix such a minor scratch. Yulia snaps back, her protective instincts regarding Ars going into complete overdrive. A professional healer with long light brown hair and a wooden staff arrives to assess the situation. She examines the bruise, estimating it will take about 2 or 3 days to heal naturally. Yulia looks horrified at the wait time and demands the healer use magic right away. The healer promises to do her best, while Ars apologizes for making a scene over a bruise. Ars privately thinks it's a bit wasteful to use magic power for something so insignificant. He asks the healer if there are severe wounds that magic simply cannot restore. He mentions hearing about drugs like panacea having similar restorative limits. The healer explains that even magic has boundaries, especially when someone is on the verge of death. She notes that the amount of magic power needed for such miracles is beyond human capability. She claims only a being on the level of a god could perform such feats. Ars takes the info to heart. Ars pivots back to the manticore, asking Karen about the potential profit from its materials. Karen explains they'll need to dismantle it at the campsite to avoid attracting more monsters with the blood. Karen softens her tone, giving Ars a rare, sincere compliment for his impressive performance. She gets energetic, noting that even high-ranking mages would struggle to defeat a male of the species. Ars brushes it off as luck, still visibly uncomfortable with receiving any kind of praise. Yulia notices Ars touching his cross earring and asks if it's some kind of magic tool. Ars clarifies it's a keepsake from his mother, though it doesn't seem to have any magical effect. Yulia observes that he always has a much gentler smile on his face whenever he touches it. Ars reflects on his mother, noting his hearing doesn't reach the place where she has gone. He smiles at Yulia, accepting her observation with a nod. Yulia beams back, happy to see him relax.